So if you're a hiker and you're looking to get more into the vertical world, whether it's rock climbing or maybe mountaineering, but you struggle a bit with the physicality or maybe even the mental side of scrambling on steep terrain, this video is really going to help you out. This is a follow along workout designed to develop the movement patterns and the strength and conditioning that is required for moving over steep terrain. You won't need any equipment, just a little bit of space. Let's get into it. Okay, to begin, we're going to do a little bit of warming up for the wrist because this routine can be pretty demanding on the wrists. We're going to be spending a lot of time on our hands and feet. So firstly, we're going to bounce forward 10 times with a neutral position with the wrists. So index finger facing forward, elbow should be locked out straight, and we're going to bounce forward 10 times over our fingertips. All right, we're going to switch it around to external rotation now, so thumb facing out, and for this one we're going to bounce backwards. Really try and keep your palm nice and flat on the ground, try and maintain pressure throughout your whole palm, and we're going to bounce backwards 10 times, keeping the elbow straight. Next, we're going to do internal rotation. So this time, thumbs facing outwards. And again, keeping the elbow locked, and we're going to bounce backwards for 10 times. You might not be able to get too much range of motion in this movement, but just really try and focus on pressing down through the ground and moving back as far as you can. Finally, we're going to flip over to the back side of the palms with your thumb facing inwards. Again, try and keep that elbow locked out and press as much of the back of your hand into the ground as possible, bouncing backwards for 10 reps. And for all of these wrist warm-up exercises, don't go into a range of motion that gives you pain, just work within a pain-free range of motion. If you find this difficult, you can shuffle your knees forward a little further. That's going to make things a little easier on all of these variations. All right, we'll just shake the wrists out there a little bit, get some blood flow back into the wrists before we get into our next movements. So we're going to flip over into this table position and lift your butt up off the floor. And what we're going to do here is just thrust the hips upwards until the hips are around hip to shoulder height if you can. If you can't, just go within the range of motion that you can. Doing these pretty quickly. This is just a little warm up for the midsection and to open up our shoulders a little bit for the moves that are coming. We're going to hold up in this top position for 10 seconds. Okay, we'll flip back over into the standard kind of bear crawl position, and here we're going to work on a 3-point, 2-point. So here we're going to begin with 4 points of contact, so your knees off the ground. Then we're going to take one limb off the ground at a time. So I'm alternating taking off a hand and then a foot and then a foot and then a hand. And the idea here is to minimize that rotation that automatically is going to happen as you take one limb off the ground. You want to keep your core engaged and actively press through the remaining limbs into the floor in order to engage our whole midsection and our core and try and minimize that rotation. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing facing upwards in our table position, bringing one limb off the ground at a time and aiming to minimize that rotation. These are great little drills for warm-ups and for core activation, as well as training some of the motor skills that we're going to be using in this workout. Alright, final little warm up is the lateral donkey kick. So starting in that bear crawl position, and we're just going to abduct the right leg out and straighten the knee, kicking away from the hip. Try and extend your knee fully. Think about pushing the foot as far as you can away from your body. And one other thing to focus on is to minimize the rotation through the hips. Obviously we're going to have a little bit there, but you want to refrain from rocking your whole body side to side as you kick out. Try and stay as low as you can with the hips as you're kicking out. Again, it helps to press into the ground with the remaining limbs, especially the hands. Just do this really slow, and like every move in this routine, we're going to be doing this really slow and under control. On that final rep, we're going to hold the leg out for about 10 seconds in an isometric hold. Alright, we can release that 10-second hold and we'll repeat the lateral donkey kick on the left-hand side. So here we're looking to get that foot around about hip height with as little rotation as possible from the hips. So try and keep your upper back, your thoracic spine as neutral as possible here as we kick out for about 10 reps. And on that last rep, we'll repeat that 10-second isometric hold. Alright, with the warm up out of the way, we're going to get into some of the crawling variations. We're going to begin with a basic one. This is the bear crawl, and we're going to start off by going backwards. If you find this really difficult, then you can just do the forward variation until you get a little more competent with it. So the key cues with a bear crawl are to keep the knees as low to the ground as possible. You really want to only pull the knees off the ground an inch or two, less the better. And again, we want to minimize that rotation, and we're trying to get the foot and the hand to come off the ground at the exact same time. Pressing through the ground again with the remaining limbs. That's building our reactive core strength and solidifying our midsection, helping to get a little bit of extra core engagement and control as we're moving back and forth in this crawling pattern. Throughout this routine, I'm going to be resting on top of my toes. This is just a great little stretch for the bottom of the feet. Helps to build strength and mobility in our feet. And yes, I do recommend doing this routine barefoot, especially with that little rest position that we're adding in between each drill. All right, let's get back into another set of the bear crawl. We're going to go backwards and then forwards. And I'm taking around 15 steps here. Now you can do this for as long or as little as you like. I'm just trying to stay within the frame of the camera. So I'm going back and forth over an area of about 15-20 feet or so. But you can do this for as long or as short as you like. When working with beginners, I usually recommend just taking on shorter distances with crawling variations so that we have the chance to really control the movement and do it with a really high level of quality. You'll find that as you tire here, your form starts to get a little bit lazy and you start to rock from side to side. So we want to minimize that as much as possible and prioritize movement quality over quantity of how many feet or meters distance you traveled in the crawl. We want to maintain a fairly neutral, kind of flat spine. So keeping your hips and your shoulders around the same height level. So try and prevent your hips from going up to the sky. You want to keep the hips and the knees nice and low here. Yes, that makes things more difficult, but it also makes this exercise a lot more effective. Okay, so that's 3 sets of the bear crawl done, and I think I'm sticking to 3 sets for most of these crawling variations. The next one that we're going to get into is the ape crawl. So this one's pretty similar, but obviously we are going to be up on top of the feet, so hips are going to be higher, and we're maintaining almost a straight knee here. You'll also see my hand positions a little bit different. I'm up on my thumb and my knuckle. That's not too important for the scrambling thing. That's more just kind of style points. A lot of these locomotion drills are designed off animal movements, hence the name. So it's pretty typical to do an ape crawl up on top of your knuckles. So if you're comfortable doing that, you can do it that way, or you can just have your palms flat on the ground. In the ape crawl, try and think about pushing your chest towards your thighs. So we're trying to maintain almost a triangle type shape in this position. And similar to the bear crawl, we're moving asymmetrically. So the left leg is moving with the right hand and vice versa. So our next crawling pattern is moving laterally, so left and right. So start in your average bear crawl position and then place the right hand out a little bit outside of the midline of the body. Keep your feet together and the left hand directly underneath the shoulder. That's our starting position, and that's really important for setting this move up correctly. Float the knees up off the ground and take your first step with your right leg and your left hand. That first step should put you in this kind of stable triangle position where you should be comfortable holding whilst you set yourself up to take your next step. This is a great little crawling pattern because it represents so closely the movement pattern that we use as we're traversing sheer faces of rock. Again, the aim here is to do this with control and as little rotation through your spine as possible. So take very purposeful steps and don't rush the movement. You want to move as if you're performing this on a sheer cliff and your life depends on it, because maybe one day it will. And by doing this slow and controlled, we're going to be building the motor skills, the strength, and the conditioning a lot more effectively than we would be if we were just rushing through these movements. Alright, our next movement pattern is a little bit different. This one is going to be performed just on your feet. We're going to assume a straddle position with your feet quite wide, really as wide as you can, and we're going to walk forward, rocking your body weight slowly from side to side. You want to keep your hips down as low as you can, ideally around knee height, and you want to keep your back straight and think about pulling your chest and shoulders backwards behind you and holding that position as the legs do the work. You'll feel this natural transfer of your body weight from left to right, so focus on the leg muscles that are engaging as you're shifting your body weight from leg to leg. Try and land softly on the ground with the heel strike rather than slamming your foot hard into the ground. Again, this is all about controlling your body and the way it moves in these tricky positions. So if you've got limited hip mobility, initially you might struggle a little bit trying to get those hips nice and low, but you will build up strength over time with this movement. We don't want to see you hunching over or leaning forward when you're doing the straddle walk, so stay nice and upright. Okay, that's 3 sets up and back with the straddle walk. So now we'll switch over to another crawling variation, which is the K2E Crawl. So K2E stands for knee to elbow. So as the name suggests, we're going to be bringing the left elbow to the left knee and vice versa. So to set yourself up right for this exercise, we're going to begin with the left side with the knee to elbow touching, and then the right side, really, we're going to be reaching as far away as we can with the hand and the foot. Once you're relatively comfortable there, we're going to take our first step with the right leg and the left hand moving forward. Bring the knee to the elbow before switching the weight onto the opposite limbs and stepping forward. Think about hovering the hands and the feet low over the ground as you move forward or backward. And similar to the bear crawl, we want to maintain a fairly low position, keeping the back straight and keeping the knees low as we move backward and forward. Pop up in that rest position, take a breath before we get into the next set. Okay, our final crawling variation is the low table crawl. So we're going to start in that low table position with your butt just hovering over the floor, and we'll step forward again asymmetrically with the hand and the foot. Keep your butt just hovering slightly above the ground. Keep looking forward with your head and take as shorter steps as you need to be able to maintain control. For now, we're just going to be moving forward, so switch around and start heading back in the other direction, face forward. Really focus on that technique of actively pushing through the remaining limbs on the floor. That's going to create a little bit more body tension and help you build more control in these movements. Okay, for this final set, we're going to attempt doing a reverse low table crawl. This makes things a little more difficult, so I decided to throw it in at the end just for a little challenge. Some of you will get it immediately, others might have to work on this for a little longer to get it right. So I hope you're enjoying this little workout. I'm sure that it will be contributing a lot to making you more comfortable and more capable in the mountains, especially over some of those tricky areas with a little bit of exposure. I get a lot of questions about, Chase, how can I fight my fear of heights and get more comfortable at heights? I think it really just comes down to trusting your own body. And trusting your own body comes down to building strength in those more unfamiliar ranges of motion and doing things that are natural movements, but also a little bit different to what you would usually do in the gym. So if you're enjoying this style of workout, I would recommend checking out my programs. You can see them in the links in the description. But feel free to come back to this, especially if you're focused on developing this kind of capability. Then I would be doing this 3 times a week, perhaps at the end of whatever other workout you're doing, because this is essentially conditioning stuff and you don't have to be super fresh to do it. All right, thanks for watching, guys. That's it for this one. I'll see you on the summit.